All right, so the first thing we're going to do is go through a mask animation. Okay, so you saw that already kind of played out in that demo file that we were going over. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a background layer, and I'm going to do one of my previous samples here. I'll just drag this in. And I also want to, I'm going to hold off on the other piece right now, but for this, I'm going to select this object, and I'm going to go to transform, make this a bit smaller, kind of center it. And so my idea is that I want to kind of get this to reveal itself at the opening of the video, and then I'll have it stop, and then I'll have a button of some kind. Okay, so there's my art. I'm probably going to have this intro part go for about 30 frames approximately, and I can always compress that too. So I'm going to insert a frame here, not a keyframe, because the background is going to be static. My animation is actually going to be the mask part. So the mask is going to animate, and it's going to give us the illusion that this background is coming in. So on this layer, on layer 2, I'll call this the mask layer. I'm just going to draw a basic oval right here in the center. All right, and now this object, I am going to actually convert that to a movie clip symbol. Alright, so convert to symbol, movie clip, just let it be symbol 1, hit OK. Alright, now I'm going to go to frame 30 and create my keyframe by control clicking and then hitting insert keyframe. Now on frame 30, I'm going to actually make the change to this object where I want it to end up, which is basically larger than it is right now. So I'm going to click on this object and go to modify transform again. I'm just going to, let me get closer here. And I'm just going to shift click this so it constrains the proportions of the circle. Just like that. So I'll keep it like that. Yeah, I'll leave it like that. It's not perfectly centered, but I think you'll get the idea. And so once I have what I want, I'm going to actually click on this mask layer and hit control click, and now I'm just going to choose mask. And that's it. So this mask is done, but the only thing is that I forgot to put a classic tween. So I'm going to click the between the two keyframes on the timeline here, and then control click that area, and then add the classic tween. So now these two guys are going to be linked together just like that. So that let's just say that's going to be my intro, right, to this piece. I'm going to then I'm going to save it right away so I don't lose any of my work. Let's do just save it as class demo, and I'm going to test this. So when you test, you can go to let's see, control and test, and just hit test right here. And so that'll open up an SWF file right away, and then just play it for you, so you can kind of test it out, see if it's working or not. This is working perfectly as expected. It's just rotating from the end to the beginning over and over and over again for the movie. All right. This is where, at this point, I want to create a stop action. So I want this thing to kind of fade in, grow in, essentially, and then I want it to stop. So what I'm going to do is go to frame 30, and I'm going to play with the Actionscript a little bit. So I'm going to go to Window, and then it is under Actions. You can hit F9 as the shortcut, so there's your shortcut key there. Opening up Actions, now there's a couple steps to get to this, which is kind of goofy, but this is just how they created it. You have this caret icon here on the upper right, a teeny tiny caret icon. So it's just these two greater than less than signs next to each other. So you click on that and you go into this code snippets window. And so the code snippets window has a couple of subfolders. The subfolder you want to focus on is the Actionscript subfolder. And then under that there is actions, timeline navigation, animation, load and unload, audio, video, a lot of different things. Okay, event handlers, this is where you can get your mouse clicks and roll over pieces of code. What we're going to do is just go into timeline navigation and then hit stop at this frame. So to add this code to frame 30, where I want this video to stop and not play over and over again, is I'll just double click that stop at this frame command there. And it's going to paste all of the code into this actions window. Okay, so this is a dialog box essentially that's basically the same thing as like our properties palette, for, if you will. So when you add the code from the code snippets window, you're going to see that there is a column on the left that says scene 1, which that's what our document is called, okay, scene 1. And that's where we're at right now in the file. And it's going to say actions, so it means there's an actions layer, and then frame 30. So this is telling me where this code is located in this timeline document, okay? Sometimes this comes in handy if you're like, something's messed up and maybe I just need to delete all the code from a certain frame. I know where the movie is malfunctioning. I can just go to this column here, click on the frame that the malfunction is happening, and just restart my code there or find a bug, if you will, in that part. So the code piece itself has two different parts. One is the intro, which really tells you what this code is going to do, how to tweak it if you need to. So it's going to literally tell you stop at this frame, and then it says the animate timeline will stop pause at the frame where you insert this code. And the code is really here. Stop, and then these two parentheses, and then the semicolon. That's it. That's all it takes for Actionscript to have this thing stop. So once that's done, I can close this out. But there's some other actions that I want to do as well. But I'll come back to that in a little bit. So I'll close that out. And it automatically saves, right? It's not going to disappear. I don't have to save it or anything. It just adds this actions layer into this document with that letter A. Right there, that teeny tiny letter A, the only thing that we know, the only thing that tells us there's, Actionscript code there. So I'll go ahead and test again rather than go through all that exporting as a movie and so on. Going into control and test. And then so now it's stopping. All right, so that is one piece of Actionscript that's going to be pretty critical to know. I mean, the stop action is just there's always a stop action in this in one of these documents, and that's it. So I can't replay this thing by clicking on it or anything like that. You actually would have to close it out and then retest it again for it to start from the beginning and replay, unless I put a button in there to have it go to frame 1 and replay. Okay, so I can do that now. And that's where I'm going to show you the button action, or actually the button the button symbol. Sorry, not action. The action is going to give the button some kind of action. But the button itself, there is no real action to it by default, except for it has a rollover property. Okay, so I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to call this flower. And I just selected my type tool, so now I'm just working with live type. I can adjust this screen, the size of the box and everything, and the way I can choose my different typefaces is I have to go into the Properties panel, and that's under Window Properties 2. And so the Properties panel, as you know, everything that we click on the screen will change the properties of the Properties panel and what we can tweak on it. For instance, size, right? This is referring to the size of my type. I can click this box and select a size. I can nudge it up or down. I can actually drag this big and small to find the right type size, right? So I can. It's a little bit different from some of the other programs in that you can adjust sizes of things differently like that. I'll make my text box larger. I'll actually change the color of this thing. I'll click my color palette, and then I can actually hover over this flower and pick a existing color from this image to kind of help it work with that composition a little better. I can, of course, change the typeface. I'll probably want to do that. I don't really want that. Yeah, this one's good. And let's see. I can do like a larger, kind of a thicker one. Let's see, 124. There we go. Okay. All right, so there's my live type. So what I want to do is actually apply this. Actually, no, I have to put this on its own layer. So I'm going to copy cut. So Command C, Command X, and I'm going to make a new layer to paste this in first because I don't want to mess anything up. So I'm going to actually go to Edit, Paste, and Place. So I just pasted that text art right in there, and it's going to be there for the whole animation. I can actually make this show up kind of towards the middle. So it's kind of disappearing at the beginning, and then it just sort of pops up towards the end. You could go either way, but I'm just going to do it that way to maybe demo something else on there. So I'm going to select this object then, and I'm going to control-click it and go to Convert to Symbol. And instead of Movie Clip Symbol, I'm going to select Button Symbol, and I'll hit OK. And so once I have the button symbol selected, just like we did with the movie clip, when we double-click that movie clip, you kind of jump into the object and see its own timeline. This is very similar. But when I double-click into this button symbol, I have a couple of different states. So in the timeline here, it's not like your typical timeline. There's an up state, an over state, a down state, and a hit state. So what an up state is the object itself, this is what it looks like, right? The overstate is, this is what the object looks like when I have my mouse hovering over it. The downstate is, this is what my object looks like when I have clicked the object. So when I have my mouse pointer clicking down on the object. And then the hit state is, this is the area that the button covers, okay? So I'll demonstrate all of those. So the overstate, if I want to change this, I'm actually going to do the same thing I would do in the timeline, is create a keyframe. So I'm going to control-click the overstate box, and I'm going to insert a keyframe. That will put an exact copy of the flower layer before it. So that's no different than any other movie clip symbol and animation. We would just insert that keyframe. So my downstate, I'm going to do the same thing, control-click, insert keyframe. All right. So I'm going to play with these for a bit. The overstate, I'm going to give it just a different kind of color tone. And let's see. So like a light purple. And for the downstate, I could keep it the same, or I could give it a different color. So maybe I'll make it black. Okay. And then, so let me jump back to scene 1. So see, now I'm in symbol 2. So I'm in the button symbol right now. I'm inside of it. This is kind of my breadcrumb trail too, where I'm at in the interface in relation to all of the pieces, right? So I'm going to jump to scene 1. This is my main timeline. You can see that all of the hit state, up state, overstates are all gone. I'll test this out. All right, that works. And then it stops. Perfect. Now I can hover over this. Yep, it's happening. It's doing the rollover. I click on it. It's turning black, which is my down state, which is perfect. The only thing is that when I kind of hover my mouse on this, you see like where the F like stops in this empty space. It's not a live area for the button to be clickable. So that's a problem from a user standpoint because the user actually has to like get exactly perfect on the edge of this artwork. So that's where the hit state comes in this button. So I'll double click the button again to jump back into this, and I'll go to the hit state, and I will actually do an insert keyframe. And then what I'll do is actually just draw a shape before my hit state. And it can be any color, it can be anything. And then I'm going to jump back to scene 1. Right, so basically what I did was I just drew a shape around this object in this keyframe that I created. And that's really the only difference. So I went to test, and then now this whole area is clickable. Even though it's not touching the exact letters of the word flower, it's clickable. If I wanted this entire frame to be clickable, you could do that. I don't know why you would want to with a button symbol. You could do it maybe with a movie clip symbol or something like that, but I'll show you that you can do it. It's kind of going to be odd though because the hover or the rollover effect will happen anywhere this mouse is on the screen. So, but you can do it. So let's see. I'll just draw another shape over top of that. And test it again. So there you have it. It's kind of all over the place. That's the button. Now the button's not going to do anything, right? I'm going to test it. I can't do anything. I can click the down state. It doesn't have any action, right? So that's where some of the action script's going to come in. So let me jump back into this. You remember the way this is kind of like acts like clay. I can just click and delete all this stuff, which is just to clean it up a bit, because I don't want the whole thing to be clickable. I want to add maybe an animation to this button. So once it kind of pops in like that, I want it to maybe fade in. So I'll actually go down here to frame 30, and I'll do a control click, and I'll insert a keyframe. Okay, and double click to make sure that that button is still working fine. Now what I want to do is actually go to this frame here, which is 25, the start of the flower button. I'm going to click on it, and under color effect, I'll hit alpha, and that's going to make it become transparent. So I'm going to put it at alpha 0% at this frame, and it's going to be at 100% at frame 30 when the video stops. And I'll just create a classic tween between these two keyframes by control clicking, create the classic tween. Kind of scrub my video to make sure everything's not broken. Okay, that's good. And test. And then it kind of is cleaner that it fades in. Just a subtle thing that might help make it look a little more fancy. All right. Now what do I want to do with this? I can make it go to a website or whatnot. I can make it restart the video, which I think I might just do. So this is very simple. It's just one thing you have to remember is when you click on this object, and since this is a keyframe here, I'm going to have to make sure that on frame 30, this object, I need to give it an instance name. All right. So the instance name is used in the code to reference the object on the stage. All right. So any name will do. It just can't have any numbers or spaces. Actually, I think you can have numbers. Let me try. Yep, you can. So it just can't have any spaces. So I'm going to call it btn1 for button 1. Okay. And for, yeah, so this is going to then actually be an active button on frame 30, where the button is created here. So I'm going to have my object selected on the desktop, and then I'm going to go to Actions again. And I'm going to go into the, that caret symbol that says Code Snippets up at the upper right. And then under Actionscript, I will go to Timeline Navigation. And then, so this is the same place that the Stop at this frame action is. But you have other options here that include click to go to frame and stop, click to go to frame and play, click to go to next frame and stop, previous frame and stop, previous and next frames to play, so on and so forth. Okay. I always go with click to go to frame and play, because if I want it to stop, I'll add a stop action at that point. Okay. All right. So after I double click to go to frame and play, you'll notice that on frame 30, which is the same frame that we have our stop action here, it adds all this bunch of stuff, okay? This stuff down here that is not grayed out is the actual code itself. This stuff grayed out up the top here is basically the instructions. It's telling you what to do to the code to make it work the way you want it to. All right, so let me expand this a bit. So basically, it says clicking on this symbol will move the playhead to the frame that you define, essentially. How to do this is right here. Replace the number 5 in the code below with the frame number you would like the playhead to move to when the symbol is clicked. All right, so here's how you know that your symbol is active and tied to the code. You'll see your instance name here. So this instance name is btn1, just like we had earlier. This is all code that's basically telling it what to do. This is all code that's telling it what to do. You can see click to go to frame and play. Event is a mouse event, so it's just saying that it's going to be triggered by an action on the mouse side. And here's that number 5 that the instructions were referring to. Go to frame and play. And in this parentheses here, I can add whatever frame I want this to go to and play. So I do want it to go to and play frame 1 for now. So I'll just put the number 1 in there, and I'll close that out, and then I'll run a test. Plays out, and then that's my reset button. All right, if I wanted this to go to frame 25, I could just then go into my actions palette, click on my actions on frame 30, and then have this go to and play frame 25. So this is going to be right at the beginning of the fade in of the word flower, and then it's going to replay out to stop at the end. So I'll do control test. Oh, that didn't really. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. It starts from the beginning. And then I click, and then it'll just go back to that fade in spot. A couple different frames there. Okay. Let me see if I can cheat this a little bit. Let me see if that broke it. Hopefully not. Yeah, not really. So what I did is actually dragged out the actions layer with all the other corresponding layers, including the background, the mask, and this button flower layer. I'll have to name it flower btn. I just selected all of these with a shift click, all of these the last frames here, and then I just kind of clicked, held, and dragged it. And then everything kind of adjusted to it. So now this kind of fades in a little bit longer, okay? But nothing is broken. So usually I make sure that every little step I take, I always do the test. I always run a test to make sure that nothing inadvertently broke. Because if something breaks, then it's a real pain to like figure out what's happening. You have to go into your actions palette, and you have to go hunting and searching. Sometimes it even makes more sense to just kind of start over on that particular scene, or things like that. Not necessarily throw everything you got away, but delete the layers that are messing up and rebuild those specifically. So are there any questions? Or something I can... Yes? Sure. Yes, for this one. And to stop the timeline. Yeah, so let me show you another maybe example. So let's say we wanted this to show like a flower animating in, right, on click. So let me do that. Let me do a new layer. And then let me call this layer, let me call it flower BTN2. And I'm going to nudge, I'm actually going to add a keyframe here on frame 71. So this whole movie ends at 71, or 70. I'm going to insert a blank keyframe this time on 71, because I'm not sure like what is going to happen here, but I know that I want something new. So what I'm also going to do here is actually bring my background in. So I'm going to actually add a frame for my background layer to nudge over to 72. So what I'm going to have this do is play out here, and then it's going to stop, and then I'm going to add this flower button. So I'll bring this over one. I'm going to add this flower button like up here, and then I'm going to have it on click play something out. So I'll play out an animation. So I'll add another layer for that animation part, and I'll call it just animation. So I'm working on flower BTN2, and I'm going to add it onto frame 70 here. I'll make this like just a text button, and call it Animate. Let's see here. Okay, I'm just going to pick in some options, make this smaller. All right, make it bold so I can see it better. All right. Okay, change its color, just keep it black. And do that again here. Okay, so I'll move this new button in. Okay, so there's my new button. It's not a button yet because it's still live text, so I'm going to have to control click and do convert to symbol, and then make sure that button symbol is selected, which it is already, and then hit OK. Then I want to actually give it an instance name because I know I'm going to add Actionscript to that. So BTN2 I'll call it. And so BTN2 is going to, basically it looks like it's just going to pop on the screen there. So that's fine. I'll just have it do that. And it's going to stop. So I'll double click into this button. I will add some keyframes here. Control click, okay. And my overstate, I'm going to click on that to edit that piece. Make this gray. I'll keep my downstate as is, and then of course my hit state, I'm just going to draw a really bright box around this so I can see it pretty well, just in case I need to tweak it later on or something. And it's not quite big enough, so I'll just add a little bit more. There we go. Okay, so that button is there. It's ready. And I'll jump and test it again just to make sure I got everything covered. Okay, that's working. And that's still working. Okay. So now for this thing to actually do something, what I want it to do is actually jump to this frame. Let me make sure I keep my mask together. I'll insert a frame here. Okay, so I want it to jump here, and so frame 71. Now I want my action to start. So I'll go to my animation. I'm sorry, my animation to start. I'll go to my animation, and on frame 71, after my stop action, I'll control-click and insert a blank keyframe. And this is where I want to drop in my other flower. So I'll go grab it, isolated flower, JPEG it's called. I'll plop that in there. So now you can see that the artwork is appearing here on frame 71 because I have that dark circle. And I'm just scrubbing it back and forth, and that's working just fine because that's popping up when I want it to on a later frame. I'm converting it to a movie clip symbol because I'm going to make it move. So instead of button, I'm going to hit movie clip this time. And this is where I can just start making this thing do what I want it to do. So what I'll have it do is just, I'll kind of make it do what it did last time. I'll go to transform, freeze transform. I'll make it kind of fly in and have it go along a clipping motion path. So it'll start here off the stage, and then probably by frame 100, I'll insert a keyframe, and I'll have it end up somewhere down here. Make it larger. And that's where it'll end. So again, that background stuff disappeared, so I want to make sure I extend all that artwork. So that artwork is located on both mask and background, because I want to make sure that the background is not flooding the whole thing, but actually cropped out just like that. And lastly, I need to add that classic tween to make this thing actually move from point A to point B. So insert or create the classic tween. So it's moving from A to B. Okay. Next, I'm going to click on control-click this animation layer, and I'll do Add Classic Motion Guide. Right. So this is the piece that we were dealing with last time, where I can actually add that piece of that sort of squiggly line that we wanted this object to follow along. So using my pen tool, I'll go to frame 71 here in my timeline and insert a blank keyframe on that guide layer. So that guide layer has this animation layer indented in our timeline. So I know that this is applying to the layer beneath it, that animation layer, i.e. this flower animation. Oh, gosh, okay. And I am going to, let me shut this down. Just start drawing, right? I'm going to draw this thing. It kind of automatically snapped for me, so that's nice. Maybe it worked, I'm not sure. Nope. Okay, so I have that line drawn out. I'm going to click this beginning piece, this beginning art, and snap it to that line. And I'll go to the end here. Move this over to the line, snap it. Scrub to see, yep, it's working good. Okay. All right, so that's all working. I'll hide this animation guide layer. Now, so what's going to happen is this is going to play out and go to the stop. It's going to stop at the end. Just like we did, we kind of tested it earlier, and it was all working. Then at this point, what I want to do is have this object, or this frame. Now this is on 71, so it's actually going to have to go to 72. So I'll click on this new button and add the Actionscript to it. And so here's my Actionscripts panel. Make it smaller. my code snippets piece here, and timeline navigation. It's going to go, I could do click to go to frame and play, and then type 72 in that box to make it go to that exact frame, or I can just go click to go to next frame and play. Let me see. Oh, it says stop. I'm going to go click to go to frame and play. Alright, so I didn't want it to stop, I actually wanted to play on frame 72. So here's the code again. So you can see that the code is on the same frame as the other two pieces. So it stops, the video stops, button 1 is active, and it makes the playhead go to frame 25. That's that flower button. It goes back to the beginning of that flower fading in. And actually, I'll change this to make it go to the very beginning of the entire movie this time. So that button will go there, and then this button will go to frame 72. This is button 2. Okay, so I'll stop that and go up here and hope that this works. So I'll go to Control Test. All right, so we're starting the beginning. Going through, stops. Click flower, goes to the beginning, stops. This should go to, yep, and then so that goes to the next frame, and then it plays out, and then it goes back to the beginning again, and then plays out till the stop happens. So, if you wanted it to stop, right, at the end, then you would just have to hit a stop action here. So I'll just click on one of the layers, go to Actions, and let me see, not on frame 71. I want to go to frame 100. Okay, so I'll go to Window Actions again, click my Code Snippets tool, and go to Actions, and oh, I'm sorry, Timeline Navigation, and double-click Stop at this frame. And then that should stop at the end of that flower animation after we click through all the buttons. So I'll do the test again. Okay, what happened there? Looks like it crashed. Try again. Auto recover. Yes? Oh shoot, I basically lost everything. Let me see. Well, I lost my working file. That's not great. But I have the SWF, so when I tested it, so here's one good thing too about when you test it, is it automatically will create that SWF file and leave it on the desktop, or wherever your original file is, it'll leave it in that same folder. Unfortunately, I think I lost all of my layers because of that. So I didn't save often enough. After all that work that I was just doing, it didn't save. So I didn't save it. However, my SWF file is working, and you can see that all of the changes that I did make prior were working. So my flower goes to the beginning, and this Animate button goes to the next frame and plays out. And I still have bugs going on. Oh, that was Animate itself. All right, so does that help a little bit? Kind of see how different scenes would work?
Yeah, kind of. I could give you questions while you're doing it.
Okay.
And it didn't. So
Oh.
Click the stop. Like I was calling this game, stop at 70%.
Yes.
Stop action.
Yep, you just click on the frame in the timeline that you want it to stop, and jump into Actions, go into your Code Snippets panel, and just double click Stop at this frame.
So if you wanted to have something pop up that had where it would fit after that stop.
Yes, right.
Okay.
And then your navigation would just be like click to go to the next frame over. So, yeah, it's pretty much that's it. If you have like a main navigation on your piece, for instance, what I would do is build your navigation out on separate layers, but have the artwork be one keyframe of buttons, let's just say throughout the entire video. So if someone wants to jump to a different a different spot on the timeline at any point in the timeline, then they could do it at any point, in the video. So if you have universal, and this is going to be important with your sketches too, if you have a universal navigation system, build that out first. Do your navigation buttons first, and then you can throw in other unique, clicks, here and there in the video, and that's fine too. Yeah, if you have universal navigation, to save yourself some headache, just kind of build that out first, and you should be good. So the only other major thing I need to probably show you is you can do the same thing with a movie clip symbol, right? So as a button symbol, you can do with a movie clip symbol. The button just has that rollover action. But if I wanted to create a movie clip, and I wanted this movie clip to have an action tied to it, I'll just do this really quickly. I'll insert a blank keyframe here on this frame 71. I'll bring that flower piece in again. All right, and then I'm going to convert this to a movie clip symbol. So let me control click that, convert to symbol, and movie clip is selected. Now I'll change this color a little bit. I'll go to properties, and I'll change I think I'll change the tint just to make it like a little different color so it can stand out a bit more. Okay, and then I'm going to go to, let's see, oh gosh, modify transform. Sorry, I was thinking Photoshop for a second there. Okay, so I'll make this a little bit smaller, kind of put it in the corner. Okay, so say this is the button that I want. Okay, I'm going to click it, and in the properties panel, again, you have the instance name here. Now, keep in mind, you can't change. Like if I were to use this drop down and do button, it's not really going to work. So I have to keep it like that as a movie clip. I'm not really sure why they do it, but it always messes things up. So I'm going to give it an instance name of. I'll just call this flower blue. And exactly the same, if I wanted this piece then to jump to the beginning of the video and play, or maybe I'll just make it jump to the middle, like frame 40, I'll do that here. So I'll make sure that this object is selected on the stage. I'll go to Window Actions, use my Code Snippets tool here, and under Actionscript, Timeline Navigation, and then just double-clicking, click to go to Frame and Play. So since I had my object on the stage selected, it knows as I'm going through the menu system for the actions that I'm applying that action to that specific object. So this flower blue object here, right? So now I'll just make it go to frame 40, and this should work. Fingers crossed. So I'll test it, play this thing out, my button, and it works. So it goes to frame 40 and replays. This one is not functioning because all that work was lost from earlier. But all right. And that's pretty much it.